We are the Coalition on AM 790, your source for talking news and business, where we cover all sides of every issue. You can find us on coalitionradio.us, on the mighty Twitter, as my friend Tony likes to call it, coalition_radio, and of course, the Coalition Radio on Facebook.com. Well, we've got a magical night tonight. Shelby, are you the only person besides me that's live on the radio tonight? Yeah. It's Labor Day weekend. Shelby has a life. Remember, there's two people in this studio. One of them is a radio professional. It's not me. Most people are out right now having the last summer barbecue. They're bringing their kids to college. So it's the weekend that every talk radio host dreads. Do you call up people and have them come on knowing that, this is the last flight of fancy as we try to escape the doom and gloom of everything from the allures of campaign to Richard Leach now being held up as a paragon of civic virtue, as the waning days of the idiot king, as I call him, Lincoln Chafee, come to an end, as literally Providence and Rome burns around us? Do you escape from all that, or do you listen to talk radio? Well, if you're listening to talk radio, we are your Sunday night solution. If you're a political junkie, a political wonk, someone obsessed with politics, someone who feels the need to be connected all the time, who wakes up in the morning and has their smartphone with their Twitter going off right next to them, that's their alarm clock. They don't need one because they know that about 6 o'clock, Wall Street Journal, I've been told this, of course, I wouldn't know this myself, the Wall Street Journal Twitter feed is, in fact, my wake-up call. If you're that person, there's some fine programming on the sister station on AM 630. Tara Granahan, John Laughlin are on Saturdays, but you're going to have to make it all the way to Monday with that finding what the idiot king has done this weekend, where A. Ralph Mollis is living and what campaign frauds he's perpetuating or perpetrating upon us. If you can't make it till that Monday morning, when the dulcet voices of Gene Valicenti open up in the morning, then we're here, 6 to 7 o'clock. As we go through the election, we'll continue to have candidates on. We love challengers. If you're a political candidate and you want some radio time, give us a call. We are outrage porn-free radio. We don't talk about Christmas trees. We don't handicap elections. We want to know why you should win. We're not going to be obsessing over what your bank account balance is. We're not going to be talking to you about the polling that you may or may not be able to afford or even feel is worthwhile. We are issues, as our former president would say, we are issues-orientated radio. In the past few weeks, we've had everyone from Ken Block on. Last week, we were treated to all four candidates for the 1st Congressional District. Stan Tran, Matt Fecteau, Cormac Lynch, and, of course, the incumbent was kind enough to call in, David Cicilline. That election is going to be a battle on both fronts. We've got primaries on the 9th coming up for both of those elections. Those four people were on the show for 45 minutes out of an hour program. We talked issues, specifics, platforms, proposals, ideas, backgrounds. That's what we do here. In a couple minutes before our first break, if you are listening out there or haven't listened to our show before, our evolution was very simple. About a year ago, we started on independent, internet-only radio. 3 or 4 of us, kind of a moving cast, came in, showed up once a week, and vented and kvetched about Rhode Island. Tried to grow a little bit up. We went to another local AM station, smaller signal than AM 790. There we started having guests on. We were the first on radio to have a full hour with Dawson Hodson, attorney Robert Mann, Greg Garrett. This show emphasizes both sides of the aisle, and even better yet, the people who don't want to be on either side of the aisle, the people for whom independent thought, independent logic, and real approaches to problem solving are the focus of their life, not their evolution within a party superstructure. This is the radio show where people who want to help lives, not get one, are entertained and participate. So, today, if you want to call in, let's just say you've heard me call into other shows. Yeah, I'm that guy, Pat from Cumberland. If you hate me, you hate what I represent, if you think that there's no place in the media for cynical, twisted bastards like me, call in. Have at me. All right? If there's issues you want to talk about that you don't think get an ample hearing in talk radio, call me. If you just want to argue, it's okay. As the show progresses, one of the things I want to do is have a segment where we actually just talk about What tweaks you about Rhode Island? Is there that one particular elected official that you loathe, that you think represents everything that's wrong about the state and is the reason why this state is in its current status, which is essentially financial, moral, philosophical, and economic collapse? As we implode amongst each other, is this the time to raise the rhetoric to a new level? Is it sufficient to sit on the sidelines anymore and merely complain to you and your friends? Or do you take those complaints statewide through what I call America's Town Hall, which is a cumulus series of radio shows, both on AM 630 and AM 790, and then perhaps through the contacts you make through those organizations and other political organizations in real time, do you then take it further? What is the boundaries now for political action? This campaign season hosts a number of folks who are going to work within the system. The system, as they describe it, is the way that American politics evolved, and that's how we solve problems. And to that I say balderdash. I still remember the march that took over I-95 in the wake of the banking crisis. There are probably people listening to this show or listening to talk radio who don't even know what the banking crisis was. They don't understand that there was a Parking Violations Bureau scandal where $45 million went missing. Some guy named Leo was running the agency. 20 years later, like a certain character actress rising out of the tub in Fatal Attraction, he's now the assistant to the Speaker of the House. Only in Rhode Island government could sheer stupidity, banality actually result in a career promotion. We are the Peter Principle come to life, where not only do you rise to the level of your own competence, you actually exceed it. Where sheer, vulgar, cynical, self-interest, self-aggrandizing dealing is the soup du jour. Where not only is it considered okay, not only you would expect it to, but in fact the only way to further your own career is to engage in it at a higher level than your peers. How else then does someone like Nikki Polly Walnuts Mattiello become Mr. Speaker? A man of uncertain accomplishments. I'm sure he's a fine person in his day-to-day life, maybe not. But how otherwise does he derail the popular demand for a thorough investigation of 38 studios? Remember, that's right, 38 studios. Long before potential Mayor Elorza was trying to figure out who he was going to plagiarize his apology statement to apologize for plagiarizing for his, youthful indiscretion. Long before all of that, we had something called 38 studios, or as I call it, 38 special, where somewhere, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from $75 million to $1 billion has been lost because of wheeling dealing between the Governor Carcieri's office, the Rhode Island Department of Economic Development, that's our own version of military intelligence, and, of course, the ever-voracious, ever-hungry for the deal, no deal is too small, General Assembly. Conveniently forgotten in the sturm and drang of the election season is the notion that this was at one point in said election season, the beginning, thought to be the defining issue. And now, since we suffer in Rhode Island from what I call short attention span theater, it's all forgotten. In the words of the immortal Rosanna Dana, never mind. So if you want to talk about that in the weeks coming up, we want you here on the Coalition AM 790. Not only do we want you to talk about it, but we actually want you to do something about it, too. There is a thought, or a theory advanced, by me, that at certain times, talk radio acts as sort of a pressure release. Remember the pressure cookers? So in vogue in the 1950s. That by merely kvetching about it, or playing the blame game, or venting, that somehow that solved the problem. Well, we know it doesn't, because things are worse here than ever. Real unemployment continues to operate at a staggering level, particularly in the inner city community. The real financial collapse is going to be taking place soon in the city of Providence as the city continues to run shortfalls and features potential inability to meet the pension obligations that everyone is obsessing over. Everybody wants their pension. They want the big pension. They want the big COLA. It's all good. But as Ms. Raimondi, our it looks like, a Democratic nominee for governor, used to say, back before she got in a certain uncertain attack of socialism, before she became the operating Democrat, the Democrat's Democrat, before she started following all sorts of extreme political movements on your Twitter account, and you know what I'm saying. Before all of that, she was the pragmatic, problem-solving individual, the Iron Lady, if you will, of Rhode Island politics, who decided to take on the special interests and actually try and achieve some pension reform. Ironically, back then, there were those amongst us like myself who didn't feel she went far enough and that she caved towards the end. In retrospect, that looked like an act of sheer iron will compared to the prevaricating, the mush that's become this campaign. So if you're concerned about that and you wonder what happened to that issue, call us at 401-437-5000. You could tweet me personally at PO Taxpayer. If you want to follow my rantings and ravings, great. If you want to throw some at me, that's great too. Because on a day like today, we sit Alan Berg-like, and that's a kind of a 1970s cultural reference for the real hardcore talk radio types. We sit here in the fortress, and we want to hear from you because we are the coalition covering both sides of the issues. Again, coalitionradio.us, Twitter, coalition_radio, Facebook, The Coalition Radio. Let's hear from you, or else for the next hour, you're going to just have to hear from me. We'll be back in just a moment at AM 790.
Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music and events venue. If you're not completely enjoying your current live music experience, there is another option. Manchester 65 is large enough to support touring acts, yet small enough for that local feel. For upcoming events, go to manchester65.com. Make it your place. manchester65.com.
ProvidenceNightOut.com is a one-stop destination website where you'll discover a comprehensive guide of everything that the Providence area has to offer. Nightlife, entertainment, dining and dancing, community and family events, and so much more. Download the free app called My Night Out. It's ProvidenceNightOut.com.
Mike's Professional Tree Service offers top-of-the-line tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, stump removal, and so much more. Mike's Professional Tree Service will do everything to safeguard your home and property and is fully licensed and insured. Call them today at 401-823-7485 for a free estimate on tree service, tree removal, trimming, and tree care. That's 401-823-7585. Mike's Professional Tree Service are the tree experts serving all of Rhode Island. Online at mikesprotree.com. That's mikesprotree.com. Midday Records is a label that is comprised of local artists and exists for the sole purpose of helping other local artists find new opportunities and to help build a more thriving New England music scene. Midday Records hosts the area's fastest-growing music-related networking event, the Midday Social, books Midday Records presents shows throughout New England, releases compilations featuring local music, promotes bands through the Midday blog, are the co-founders of Music for Pause, and has recently started an artist development and management division. Stay up to date with Midday Records by checking them out on your favorite social media site like Facebook and Twitter, and find them online at middayrecords.com. That's middayrecords.com.
The Dennis Miller Show on AM 790 Talk and Business.
Beautiful day we're having thanks to our efforts to stop global warming, and I'm here to give you a lesson.
No, wait a second, Pete. Can you call back in a few minutes?
Sure.
It's just too early to hear your insufferable voice. Be a dependable moron, unless we all get incinerated in the interim 30 minutes.
Smart, entertaining, and relevant. The Dennis Miller Show, weekdays at noon on AM 790 Talk and Business. Your home for Yankees baseball.
And we are back on the Coalition on Talk Radio. AM 790, your source for news and business and everything important in life. After last week's lapse in programming when we covered the entire congressional district one campaign, one of my favorite segments is what I call Joey Bailino's Big Lie of the Week. And this week we found out a whopper. Holy shnikes, as one of my immortal philosopher friends would say. We found out this week that, again, by the way, in life you have to have a core philosophy and you have to look to certain people, all right, to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow and advance, let's just say you advance your food, your train of thought. You know, I count a number of them. Rosanna, I think, really amplifies and typifies the high level of political thought here in Rhode Island. She, of course, the immortal character from the real Saturday Night Live, the one that mattered, back in the 70s, when the entire nation would come to a halt on Saturday nights, when, you know, it was the Seinfeld before Seinfeld, where the cooler conversation on Monday mornings would be, can you believe they said this? Can you believe they did this? Well, Rosanna summed up Rhode Island politics by saying, never mind. Well, years ago, a constitutional amendment was passed in response to the growing threat as perceived by some, or the growing opportunity as perceived by the political class, to tackle the approval of casino gaming. So, an amendment was added to the Constitution, and I'm not an expert. I just play one on the radio 3 or 4 times a day as I stalk a variety of AM talk radio shows. But ultimately, it came down to statewide as well as local approval for the individual casino project, and that was seen as a measure in order to give people a chance to control the destiny of their hometowns. Pretty fair, pretty thoughtful, particularly for Rhode Island government. Flash forward a number of years. So the notion is, of course, that if a casino is to be built in a town, there are 2 levels of approval. There's the statewide level, where the entire state votes on it, and then at the town level, it's voted on. What's astonishing is at almost all cases, it comes close to, or in many times it's passed on the state level. Sometimes not. When it comes to the local municipality, it's usually crushed or defeated. So, in a move of sheer genius that was shepherded in by the House leadership with, my understanding, Joey Boy Mayor Paolino up there in the gallery, or the galley, as I like to say, watching it on, rooting it on, they wrote legislation in and created the current Newport casino referendum to not include a vote on the municipal level. Ruh-roh, wait a minute. Are you saying to me that in the halls of justice in Rhode Island, justice is in the halls? No. I'm shocked. Self-dealing at the General Assembly level? Now, you got this guy, Peter Martin, state rep, Newport. He didn't seem to think it was a problem, despite the fact that he's allegedly a member of, or participates in some level of No Casino RI. They single-handedly took the right to self-determination away from an entire community. And what's worse is, didn't really ever get around to disclosing it at any level until this past week. All right? My understanding, again, I'm perfectly content to operate on rumors, hearsay, innuendo. That whole fact-checking thing that these other guys say they do, nah, not for me. You got a good rumor? You want to keep it quiet? I'm not the right person to talk to. So, they passed this law that says, well, it's only got to be voted on the state level, and we'll figure out, the geniuses at the Rhode Island Board of Election will figure out which votes came from Newport. Okay. Good job, Brownie, as they like to say. No problemo. I completely trust the intentions of the Rhode Island Board of Elections. They're highly honorable people. So the big lie of the week is this, that as it stands right now, that the people in Newport will have any right to self-determination in this, that it will be up to some nameless, faceless, shapeless apparatchiks to decide what votes from Newport really count. Are we going to have hanging chads here in Newport? Are we going to go back to the good old days when Are we going to have to determine the people who are alive and the people who are dead? Really? How does this happen? This was my understanding, my intelligence from a closely connected source tells me that some of the people in in Newport, just got curious. Called the town official. He had just gotten off the phone off a conference call when they decided that, I guess as they call it, the Question 8. Never mind. So that's my big lie of the week. That Joey Paolino actually cares, actually is even remotely interested in the attitudes and the feelings of the very host community that he seeks to destroy. The notion that somehow he actually wants to be part of this community as opposed to being an infliction and an affliction is a complete fraud. The notion that somehow that the economic well-being of the people of Newport plays any role in what I call Monaco on Mineral Spring is sheer farce and sheer folly. Most of the social media you see directed in support, again, my inside intelligence tells me, are employees or people who have a direct financial interest in it. Repeated inquiries have been made to Mr. Paolino to discuss what's the real economic impact in terms of employment in Newport Grand. How many people actually work at Newport Grand who live in the greater, and by definition, I'm talking Newport, maybe Portsmouth, maybe Middletown area. How many people come from out of state? Since Mr. Paolino has decided to cast this proposal as a jobs bill, hence the Twitter page, Jobs for Newport, where the term gambling and gaming are curiously absent. Since he has decided to take that job and position it as a jobs bill, sort of following what I call Twin River 101, where the people in Lincoln were bamboozled into the expansion of casino gambling with the notion that it would create jobs, when in fact, if you ask any one of the dozens of businesses that have closed in the greater Lincoln area in the past year, particularly those that depend on who are, entertainment, those who are restaurateurs, as they see effectively government-subsidized competition eat away at their livelihoods. Ask them how important it was to have a say in it. And ask them if they feel like it's a jobs bill. Because other people be getting jobs. It isn't them. Unless, of course, they're connected to one of a handful of legislators. I had a Rhode Island legislator tell me a couple of years ago when the Twin River was looking to expand how, when he had a constituent, and this is a guy who, is allegedly a conservative Republican. He told me that, I was able to get him a job. I was able to get a guy who was a family man a job. Well, isn't that swell? Government creates a monopoly an oligopoly for a select group of individuals. And then what government giveth, government taketh away, because that organization, whether it be Twin River or Newport Grand or Newport less than Grand, starts to eat away at the local economy. Why go to a restaurant if you can get the buffet for free? Why have a band come in if for gambling away some money you can go listen to the band for free or reduced cost? Inquiring minds want to know. You're listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio, AM 790, your source for news and business. CoalitionRadio.us. You can tweet me at PO Taxpayer. We'll be right back.
Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music and events venue. If you're not completely enjoying your current live music experience, there is another option. Manchester 65 is large enough to support touring acts, yet small enough for that local feel. For upcoming events, go to manchester65.com. Make it your place. manchester65.com.
You wouldn't want your meal shipped from another continent. Why would you want your favorite radio station streamed from across the globe? That's why AM 790 created a super cool app that not only allows you to stream our best shows and music, but it also gives you access to great local deals like half off top restaurants, concerts, and more. Just go to 790business.com and download our groovy cool app. Keep it local, keep it simple, keep it connected with 790business.com.
Use your unique talent to help end hunger. The 1 of 52 Hunger Network is a grassroots movement that allows you, as an individual, to have a major impact on ending hunger. No fees, only action in just 1 week a year. Join this Strength in Numbers network at oneof52.net. Do you have an upcoming party, gathering, or social event? Want experienced mobile sound entertainment? Then contact DJ Psycho Eddie. Having worked with several local and national acts, as well as charities, nonprofits, and the area's best live event venues, DJ Psycho Eddie can get the party started and keep it going. Contact DJ Psycho Eddie today at 401-338-0787 for a free consultation, or look for DJ Psycho Eddie on Facebook.
And we are the Coalition Talk Radio, covering all sides of every issue with intelligence, warmth, and compassion. You can call us at AM 790, area code 401-437-5000. It's open mics. Anyone who wants to call in? You want to argue with me? You want to get into it? You want to call me a troll? This week I was called a troll twice. It's kind of funny. One of the hallmarks of the Funk campaign is to say something incredibly negative. Then I call it the Funk troll approach. Saying something incredibly negative about somebody, and then when someone responds, debate the point for a minute or two, and then walk away shrugging your shoulders and saying, I can't imagine, I can't believe, I can't understand why people are so negative. So this past week we were discussing the on social media, and I engage on social media. You know, I find it fascinating that millions of people across America routinely engage on social media, and yet are dismissed by the mainstream media as trolls. So I had none other than Ethan Shorey from the Valley Breeze, which is actually a fine newspaper. I commend it to everyone's attention. It's proof positive that local newspapers can work. The notion that newspapers have to be a dying business, it's a fallacy. That's the weakness of the Providence Journal and primarily its management team, who bailed this past week or two. But anyway, so Ethan decided to announce that after engaging in fairly heated debate back and forth that I thought was at a relatively high level, that he had violated one of his New Year's amendments by saying that I was not, and this is his words, that I was not going to engage with morons on social media. Now, my first reaction, of course, is to say I resemble that remark. But then I said to myself, wait a minute. Here's an organization, again, a fine newspaper, the Valley Breeze, that maintains a pretty high focus on social media. And we're discussing an issue. But somehow this evolves into the we're smarter than you. We're the media. Big mistake. And it's that type of cultural arrogance that really has led to the demise of much of their brethren. I was surprised to hear it from someone, so young, who's a relatively young man in the media world and is, is an articulate and a good writer. To kind of go into the defense of attack the messenger, not the message. Once your argument actually falls apart, then turn around and accuse them of being a troll. What's that, the 5 dirtiest words on Facebook? You're a troll. Your opinion means nothing. We know better than you. And here's the problem. The media, by and large, has sat on the sidelines and watched this collapse happen here in Rhode Island. Now, is it their fault? No. In some cases, you had pretty much a revolving door in between media and government as soon-to-be out-of-work media types scramble and fight over the PR jobs that are available with the Hackenistas. Everyone from congressmen to mayors have hired freshly minted 20-year alums from the media business, people who had spent an entire career arguing about the integrity of the media and the independence of the media, who at the first possible shot at a really good 401k and a medical program that doesn't require catastrophic care deductible, jumped ship and essentially violated 20 years of trust, as far as I'm concerned, with the folks that read their paper, listened to their TV station. We talk about revolving door laws with regard to said same issue, the Leach appointment. Maybe we need to have, and I'm being facetious here, but maybe folks need to have some type of revolving door law with the media and government. Because the media is inherently given this opportunity and accordingly a responsibility to be that force for good or that force for the truth. Because sometimes the truth isn't good. Maybe that's sort of a naive assumption that I gained as someone who grew up surrounded by the Watergate scandal, where the Washington Post was, in effect, the white knight that came from nowhere through the help of a shady character called Deep Throat, who confessed all as to what was going on in the Nixon campaign administration and the campaign, the suppression of civil rights, the aiding and abetting of criminal conspiracies, all that, ironically, one of the weakest presidential candidates in American history. And then the criminal cover-up of it. These are the people who blew open the door, who changed, literally, for about a 6 or 7 year period, changed the way America thought about government. And it really changed it permanently. And also thought about how America thought about the media. Because for once we had grown beyond this sort of yellow journalism. You had a group of people out there who were truly willing, at their own personal risk of both career and in some cases life, willing to expose the type of garbage, or as the now soon-to-be retired State Senator San Bento would say, garbage, that has really been the culture and the currency of Rhode Island government for so long. So getting back to the troll argument, the same thing popped up during the whole debate over the Alorza campaign. Now, just truth in advertising here, I attempted to contact the Alorza campaign and actually had a nice conversation with one of the highly placed campaign officials there this week in an attempt to get Mr. Alorza to come on to independent radio. Now, as I've mentioned, over the past year and a half, we've been extremely fortunate that what I'll call A-list Rhode Island candidates are willing and have the cojones to come on independent radio. Again, perfect example, Ken Block, Dawson Hodgson. These are people operating at the highest level of government who make the time and take the time to even come down to shows like us, who don't represent yet, at least, a large section of the audience. But their commitment to pushing ideas forward, as opposed to reacting to events thrown at them, make them different. Ironically, this was a day or so before the Alorza campaign found out a hard lesson about the media. That the entire media firmament isn't necessarily in love with you because you cast yourself as a reformer. Hard lessons learned. How many times, if you're a political junkie, have you seen a candidate arise seemingly from nowhere to become the hot topic, inevitably to self-destruct within a couple of days? So again, as you can imagine, the treatment of the Alorza campaign on the Go Local Prov website, in full disclosure, Russ Moore, who is a frequent contributor to this program, writes the who's hot and who's not. I consider sort of the seminal, the most important, the one column in this state that's really got its fingers on the pulse of Rhode Island politics. All right, writes for Go Local. A lot of noise and spin was placed on the structure of the headline. I'm always amazed by folks who are more upset with how news is delivered than the contents of the news. That if you're not nice enough, if you don't make it pretty, the ugly facts of the news that they help create, when in fact they are the news, is lost because he didn't say it in a nice enough tone of voice. That a headline writer could somehow obscure the fact that the gentleman, Mr. Alorza, may or may not have disclosed the fact that he had engaged in some petty larceny early in his life, most of which would have been dismissed immediately if it wasn't, in fact, for the ham-handed treatment post-announcement. Because first you had this pseudo-apology, a non-apology apology. And when questioned in the mainstream media, they went right into spin cycle. You know, I wonder, during the break, Shelby Ray, our distinguished producer here, and I were talking about how, an amateur like myself on radio, What do we sound like? And one of the hardest things to do when you're on the radio, particularly if you're a rank amateur and you're a narcissist like me, is to sit back and listen to yourself talk after the fact. Because sometimes you like what you say, and sometimes you say, oh, my God, I'm an idiot. Well, I wonder if those same politicians should actually sit and listen to the way that they spin a conversation. And I wonder if at times they shouldn't sit back and say to themselves, is that how I would want someone to talk to me? Like I'm some sort of idiot? That the question of whether or not you plagiarize something is actually an important question, and it is not a distraction from the candidate's desire to do this, and then launching into a series of what they want to do, an attempt to not to answer the question. And I wonder if they realize that we get the fact that they're dodging the question, that they're not pulling anything over on anybody, and their preachy tone of self-righteousness at being shocked, I say, at having their character, quote-unquote, assassinated in the press, when merely the press is looking to ask him a couple of fundamental questions, at which point the problem would probably go away. Do these people listen to themselves? And has the culture of press relation and press secretary gotten so pervasive where I'm convinced that the Assistant Undersecretary of the Department of State and Highway Transportation probably has a press person, all right, so that we no longer even know what we're saying to people. And I love that preachy tone, by the way. You ever listen to Hillary Clinton, by the way, as an aside? I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but when she decides that we're not smart enough to understand the issue, when she talks in her slow, I'm going to explain it to you, third-grade teacher voice, that's what they sound like to us. So let's dial it back to how this works in social media. So the Alorza campaign has got its drones and clones out there, like any campaign, trying to spin it in social media. The irony, of course, is that they dismiss social media all the time, yet they spend a heck of a lot of time on it. I listen to PRO obsessively. I'm on the road during the day. I am the Willie Loman of the transportation industry. Samplication in hand, I tread across the country, listening to talk radio, listening to politics all day long. And for particularly liberal Democrats who spend so much time casting aspersions on on talk radio, they sure spend a lot of time on it. I think it was the blowhard Limbaugh came up with the term seminar caller. Seminar caller, of course, is an individual who works for the campaign, and they sit there on a phone bank and they call the radio stations and attempt to spin the argument. You see that a lot from the Pell campaign as well. People who constantly come up on the radio and say, you've got to listen to his ideas, you've got to go to his website. Well, the Alorza campaign, one of their apologists, a young man who works for the Department of Education, after spending probably a couple hours in a chat room arguing about it, decides to dismiss the rest of us as trolls. Huh? He was one of the ones who started the conversation. It's that Fung troll approach. Start a conversation, attack. When you lose the attack, dismiss everyone else as being negative. How does that work? And how does that advance a discourse of ideas? If, in fact, talk radio, social media are now America's town halls, like it or not, it is transparent to us, I love that word transparent, it is transparent to us that the mainstream media is increasingly frustrated that they are no longer the gatekeepers to information. Well, folks, that door is wide open now. Independent media like myself is going to continue to get in their grill with none of the rules and none of the remorse. And if you call me a troll, well, I consider that a badge of honor. We're the Coalition on Talk Radio, AM 790, your source of news for business. We'll be right back.
Attention gardeners, farmers, growers, homesteaders, and horticulturalists. Coming soon to 1889 Post Road in Warwick, Rhode Island, it's The Grow Store. For all your indoor gardening supplies, it's The Grow Store. Mike's Professional Tree Service offers top-of-the-line tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, stump removal, and so much more. Mike's Professional Tree Service will do everything to safeguard your home and property and is fully licensed and insured. Call them today at 401-823-7485 for a free estimate on tree service, tree removal, trimming, and tree care. That's 401-823-7585. Mike's Professional Tree Service are the tree experts serving all of Rhode Island. Online at mikesprotree.com. That's mikesprotree.com. Attention gardeners, farmers, growers, homesteaders, and horticulturalists. Coming soon to 1889 Post Road in Warwick, Rhode Island, it's The Grow Store. For all your indoor gardening supplies, it's The Grow Store. Midday Records is a label that is comprised of local artists and exists for the sole purpose of helping other local artists find new opportunities and to help build a more thriving New England music scene. Midday Records hosts the area's fastest-growing music-related networking event, the Midday Social, books Midday Records presents shows throughout New England, releases compilations featuring local music, promotes bands through the Midday blog, are the co-founders of Music for Pause, and has recently started an artist development and management division. Stay up to date with Midday Records by checking them out on your favorite social media site like Facebook and Twitter, and find them online at middayrecords.com. That's middayrecords.com.
And we're back. The Coalition Talk Radio. Last week's show podcast can be found up on coalitionradio.us. We are fortunate enough to have all four members on the radio running for the seat of Congress, Congressional District 1. Again, we can be found on Twitter. I can be found at PO Taxpayer, and on Facebook, the Coalition Radio. In the last few minutes of the show, if anyone wants to call in, it's 401-437-5000. One of the prevailing, if you will, backgrounds to this show is the notion of the hypocrisy of government complaining about situations that it helped create. If there is a constant thread through all the issues we attack, it's the notion that government is complaining about a situation when, in fact, their actions directly created the environment for that situation to occur. You know, let's talk about Syria for a second. Which side are we on this week? Wasn't John McCain, just as an aside, I want to talk about really the inversion and Burger King and Tim Hortons and all that good stuff. But I seem to remember, and please correct me if I'm wrong, weren't 8-9 months ago, a year ago, didn't the future of the world rest on us supporting the insurgents? I'm just saying. It's astonishing to me, the amnesia that the media thinks we have, that we're not onto this stuff. They think we're stupid. And by stupid, I mean STOOOOOOPID, stupid. That we have absolutely no attention span. Another example of that, of course, is now the great controversy over Burger King. People are being encouraged. A sitting United States senator came out and advocated for a boycott of Burger King. Now, the last time I checked, again, I'm not an expert. I play one on the radio. But I didn't even think it was legal for them to advocate for a boycott. All right, but, they're above the law. Insider trading, Sheldon Whitehouse, pre-med, pre-law, what's the difference, right? So, let's explore some of the big lies here. The first big lie, if you will, is the notion that a company's patriotism is dictated by its tax burden. First of all, corporations are people. He said it. Corporations are people. Corporations can't be people. Actually, corporations are people. Corporation is just a legal instrument that brings together a group of investors who have decided to pursue a given line of business. So that makes them people. So, yeah, corporations have rights. First thing. The primary duty of a corporation is to make money. Oh, there I said it again. No, it is not. Legally, by the way, legally make money. The primary duty of a corporation is not to advance the social theory du jour. The primary responsibility of a corporation is not to benefit the community. The primary responsibility of a corporation is not to be the spigot for which all of the social welfare benefits, programs, entitlements, whatever you want to call it, whether it be the collection of payroll taxes, the dissemination of health care, the dissemination of you name it. That is not their responsibility. The responsibility of a corporation is solely to its shareholders, to make them as much loot as possible. Anything else is either secondary or an invention of a group of individuals who are trying to spin on behalf of their cause. Sorry. And that cause could be conservative. It could be liberal. It wouldn't be libertarian because we don't do that to our corporations. We like and respect our corporations. We see corporations and we see business and we see the creation of wealth as really the fulfillment of the capitalist idea. And the reason why the capitalist system works, and it's better than anything else because it takes man's primary motivation, that is self-interest, vested self-financial interest, and uses that as a tool to create opportunities and wealth for other people, i.e. the investor is looking to make some dough. And by the way, that investor may be a dreaded pension fund. You know, we talk about all these corporations as they're evil. Newsflash, folks, most of these large corporations are institutionally owned. And when I say institutionally owned, they're owned by large, yes, institutions. I'm smart that way. The institutions, by the way, very often are union pension funds. Go figure. I have seen the enemy, and he is us. But, again, I digress. So, the notion is that these people have a vested financial interest in maximizing the financial performance of the organization they belong to. They need to do it in a legal way, and that's it, Sparky. Burger King. They sell hamburgers. Anyone who's checked the papers lately will tell you that even McDonald's is starting to go through some hard times. Hard times, I mean, they're making money. They're just not making it at the rate, increasing at the rate that they used to. For health reasons, societal reasons, cultural reasons, any one of a thousand different issues, right now it's a dying market. So what do corporations have to do to succeed? One of the cliche terms in the business world is called eating your young. When they say eating your young, corporations have to innovate certain parts of their operation out of existence, or else a competitor will do it through the use of another cliche called disruptive technologies, something that blows open and creates a market that we didn't know we needed. All right, Uber, great example. It's in the space of a year or so, it's changed and disrupted one of the oldest industries in America, the taxi business. But Burger King. So Burger King decides that it's going to acquire the Tim Hortons chain. Now, people in this area will remember Tim Hortons. I remember the one on Newport Ave. Nice place. Never went there. Sorry. I'm a Dunkies guy, you know. And I like Starbucks occasionally when they got a deal going on. So Tim Hortons around here was actually a failure. But it's Burger King's desire to expand into new markets. And Canada, by the way, in a lot of ways is doing better than we are. And also expand into a different level of dining. That is one of the primary motivations of the deal. And of course, people are obsessing over this inversion theory. That is the notion that if the new corporate headquarters becomes, and the acquirer becomes a foreign corporation, then that will, in a sense, divert a significant portion of their tax liability to a lower tax rate. Well, whose fault is that? The Canadians? Nope. Tim Hortons? I think this guy Tim, I didn't grow up in hockey country. He was a hockey player. He slings donuts. Don't think it's his fault either. People at Burger King, other than that creepy Burger King dude that was trolling the airwaves a couple of years ago, yeah, it's not their fault. Yes, going back to the original contention of this discussion, this is a situation that was created by ourselves. I have seen the enemy and he is us. So the American government created an environment of high corporate taxation, an inability to repatriate profits from overseas, and now we're upset because the obvious cause and effect has taken place. It's my understanding now that in this case, Canada has a lower corporate tax rate than the United States. Now, if you're old enough to understand Canada's socialist operating mode, if you will, from not that long ago, that's a pretty stunning admission. So where did these laws come? Did they come from the evil Koch brothers? Were they popped up on us? Did George Bush do it? No. Congress did it. And there's plenty of blame to go around. By the way, that's why I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. The Democrats, acting purely in concert with Republicans, have created one of the highest and the most expensive tax systems in the world as we know it now. So much for being capitalist, so much for creating an environment where people's profit incentivize other people through the use of investment to create new opportunities, technologies, to create that dreaded profit thing. So much for that. It was the American government that created, for example, a tax surcharge on medical devices that is pushing jobs overseas. Koch brothers didn't do that. George Bush didn't do that. Hell, Michael Moore didn't even do that. Although Michael Moore probably likes it from the steps of any one of his 9 multi-million-dollar homes, that aren't exactly part of socialist workers' paradise. Again, I digress. Years ago, as a young man, I worked in the tax business. And I worked in New York City. And every April 15th, this is before the days of electronic filing, every April 15th, there would be this zoo-like environment at the main post office on 8th and about 33rd Street, right across from Madison Square Garden, which in the 70s or 80s, let's just say New York City didn't have this kind of Disney-like tourist-friendly milieu that it does not. It was not full of chain stores. And 8th Avenue at 11 o'clock at night on any night of the week was a pretty interesting place to be. It drew on an eclectic mix of individuals, characters, and criminal records. So every year, the TV trucks would be there to interview breathlessly someone who was filing their taxes at the last minute. And as I said, I worked for a corporation. That filing date was shared with a number of important corporate filings, extensions, things like that. So a couple years in a row, I found myself at 8 or 9 o'clock at night on the steps of the said post office, and the news trucks would be there. And I remember one of my childhood heroes, a guy named Senator Bill Bradley. If you're a Hoops fan, you'll remember that he was a player for the World Championship New York Knicks, a graduate of Princeton University, and later on a presidential candidate. And he stood there, and at that time he was advocating for what is now looked upon as one of the early versions of the flat tax. And for whatever reason, because I am truly a face made for radio, the cameras all swung their lights on me. Maybe it was a picture at 10 o'clock at night at some young kid in a suit. And Bill Bradley said to me, "Young man, don't you have a problem with this corrupt corporate tax system and all these loopholes and benefits for corporations?" I said, "Not really, because y'all were the ones who created." And all of a sudden the cameras walked away from me, never to be aired again. This is the first time I'm back on media. CoalitionRadio.us. I think we'll be right back.